Introduce the shit already.
Why is it always my fucking responsibility?
Because you're the one who
get off on
the
it.
earth-shattering intros.
I do.
None of us are able to do that, so therefore it's on you. Give us a
Not that I'm not able to.
great intro.
I get
Deliver!
I get off wicked hard.
Yeah.
Yes! Welcome back!
There it is.
Power Trip Gaming PowerCast. Woo!
I just love that his good intros just means...
Just yell!
Just get louder.
Get louder!
Oh my God.
It's been like 2 months since we've recorded a
Why are you
podcast.
still screaming?
Because I have to bring the energy.
It literally,
and
yes.
we're not doing the topic we should be doing.
That's true, we're not at all.
What is the topic?
We haven't finished last round.
Yeah, we were supposed to do last round.
Oh, that's right. We didn't do 4 and 5, which, oh my God, it only got better, too.
It did.
I had to reread them at this point, though.
Oh,
We'll do that on a separate episode, I promise.
Yes.
probably.
But yes, it's Power Trip Gaming PowerCast. It's been a couple months. I apologize. We've just been so busy with life and recording just the main channel stuff that...
These two have been busy with life.
Yeah, things have
Been
kind of...
sitting here on the couch waiting.
It's been hectic. Paul and I are getting our asses kicked in the real world.
Yes, we are. Yeah, the real world doesn't slow down for anybody, especially us. So.
And since we don't get paid for this shit...
Nope, we do not.
Unfortunately, this is the fat that gets trimmed, unfortunately. Nice addition, Paul. Thanks for the thing.
I got nothing.
I guess I
Got
can
nothing.
see that.
Yep, this is going to be a one-man show today.
Holy shit. So what's up with you guys? Anything new? What you playing? Anything good?
You're going to laugh at me because...
DuckTales?
Of course. No. It had been, I think, about 2 years since I had played through Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally just, yesterday, just finished Link to the Past again.
Did you do the full run, or did you do the cheap, quick
Did you do the
first
Houlihan
dungeon?
run?
Or, yeah, the Houlihan.
The Houlihan run and the fast run are two different things.
Yes,
thank
they
you.
are.
But the fast run would literally take me
5 minutes.
5 minutes and 1 second. So no, I did the actual.
Well, with the way you
full
play
playthrough.
games, that could have been stretched to like 10 days.
No, it couldn't have.
Yes,
no.
it's you, Paul.
No. No. I played the full game. I played it the full way through, and I did my little trick that I like to do, where you can actually get the tempered sword, basically right after you beat. I think it's the first temple, like in the Dark World. So then you do number 1, and then you can do number 4, because you've already got like the power glove. And so you go into Temple 4, you get the Titan's Mitt, and then you can go to rescue the swordsmith, who is a frog. So you rescue him, take him back, and then you basically can get your sword tempered right after you beat the first temple, or the first dungeon in the Dark World.
I didn't know that.
Never really thought about going that direction.
Yeah, no, it's great. It makes the first couple of dungeons really super easy, because obviously you have a much stronger sword.
Yeah. That is the one thing I'll give Link to the Past, is how open it is when you get to the Dark World to a degree.
To a degree it is, because there's certain items that you get as the big treasures that you need for further dungeons. But for the most part, I mean, if you want to, from the point that I had the ice rod and the fire rod, I could have gone right to Dungeon 7, which is Turtle Rock.
It's just it's kind of neat because you can explore it pretty freely.
Yes.
Whereas you look at Link's Awakening, where it's kind of sequestered until you get certain parts of the story,
and then it'll open up, and then you go to the next segment. And
that's the one thing I'll give Link to the Past, is it definitely feels more open, more like the original, which is obviously what I think they were trying to go for.
I think so. After Zelda 2, they really wanted to rein it back and just kind of go back to what was successful about Zelda 1, and that's what they basically did.
Pretty much.
And then just kind of introduced 2 different worlds. You had Hyrule, and then you had I think what amounted to Low Rule?
It's Low Rule. That became
they addressed that in Link Between Worlds, right?
That became the official name for it when they did the DS, their 3DS sequel.
Link Between Worlds.
The Link Between Worlds.
That became the official name for it.
Yeah.
That was a really good one, actually.
I liked both of them. I liked Link Between Worlds. And it's so funny because when you really play A Link to the Past, it already they talk about like a link between the worlds, so it's like I can understand where they got the title from for link between worlds. So
really, Link to the Past, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So now I think with September, we're in September now and getting close to October. So I think actually now I'm gonna start switching gears to more of like survival horror type games and stuff, just to get into the
holiday spirit.
Get into the spirit.
I already beat you on that one.
Yeah, right.
I picked up Vampire again.
Oh yeah.
Because I never finished it. I loaded up my game. I was like, and then I was just like, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. So I was like, screw it. I just started from scratch. And
what's Vampire?
It's
It's a PS4, right?
Yeah, I really don't know how to describe it. It's a narrative-based game with like mild combat where your character is a vampire.
Okay.
In London in 1918, and you can there's like the areas you're in, you can choose to like help the citizens that are there, or you can choose to like build them up and then kill them to get a whole shit ton of experience to like get more powerful.
It's Fable.
And it changes like the ending and stuff like that.
It's Fable.
It kind of feels like it's more like it's not really more actiony, but it's kind of like in the same vein as like Heavy Rain and all that,
I gotcha.
where it's like narrative heavy, but there's also
actual
battle mechanics.
Like combat's kind of a secondary thing. It's just there to tie together everything.
In like the Quantic Dream games, I don't think there was ever really any like combat.
No,
I think it's all QTEs and stuff. Yeah,
because even what was it? Detroit, I think, had some fight scenes, quote unquote, but it was
still QTEs.
Yeah.
I say, other than that, I've been trying to finish Dragon Quest 11. That goes.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, that's about it.
It's not too bad.
What have you been playing?
Lately I've been Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Came out not that long ago.
Oh,
so I've
hasn't Xenoblade Chronicles 3 been out for like a while?
Oh, like a month maybe.
Oh, seriously? Oh, never mind then. Okay.
It just came out, yeah.
Yeah, so I've been playing with that lately, here on and off, and just kind of bouncing back and forth between that and, what was the other one? Neo, World Ends With You sequel.
Gotcha. Yep.
Very, very good. I really liked World Ends With You on the DS and the Switch. Mm-hmm. They played very well. I really enjoyed that game. So, yeah, I've been playing those, kind of, biding my time till Scarlet and Violet come out. And
of course.
How are you biding your time? You have Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
I know. That'll take up my entire time.
Fucking.
But, yeah, so I've been playing that. There was something else, too, that I was going to get. Oh, I was looking at getting Soul Hackers 2 for the PS5. I liked Soul Hackers for the DS. 3DS, I think it was.
Yeah, I believe so.
Back in the day. It's another Shin Megami game. Kind of more of like a sci-fi, cyberpunkish kind of
interesting
take on the Shin Megami world. I like that aesthetic.
Now, Shin Megami, that's like the genre of games, right? Or
no,
like
that's the company.
The company, it's called Shin Megami Tensei?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's weird because there are also games called Shin Megami Tensei.
Yeah. Well,
it's kind of weird.
Because Shin Megami, it's like Persona, where it's like that's the main title, and then
it's in that branch.
Well, for the longest time, I always thought Shin Megami Tensei was like a person.
No.
And I'm like, oh, Shin Megami Tensei created this game. Okay, yeah, people love his games.
Because the Shin Megami Tensei 5 came out not that long ago. But then, even Persona and all that is a branch of Shin Megami.
Yeah.
It's like that's... It's like the overarching umbrella.
I suppose a better way of looking at it would be like Mario or Super Mario, where there's Super Mario, but then there's a whole bunch of other games that have Super Mario something.
Mario Kart.
Mario World, Mario this.
Paper Mario.
Yeah, so it's like that.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But speaking of franchises, we're going to be talking about
a good old classic
that is...
Especially because we're
kind
getting
of long,
spooky season.
It's a spooky season coming up. It's kind of been forgotten, I think, a little bit.
I don't know if I would necessarily say forgotten, but it's definitely been overlooked for
it got dealt
years.
kind of a knockdown after the last game.
Yes,
that's true.
Oh, very much
it was
so.
knocked on its ass after the last game.
But it also suffered from a from an identity crisis, though, because
The
the
last
game,
game?
yeah,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about that. Stay tuned.
In due time, we'll get to that. But yes, we're talking about Castlevania Dracula.
Well, now they know exactly what game I was talking about.
Yes.
Obviously, Lords of Shadow 2.
Lords of Shadow 2.
But now we are going to be talking about Castlevania. We're starting from its humble beginnings on the Nintendo and just working our way up the chain through the Game Boy, through the Super Nintendo, through the Sega Genesis, through the PlayStation, and beyond.
That's right. So, I forgot how big this franchise was.
Huge.
It is one of Konami's most successful IPs.
And it is one of, I would say, one of the tentpole IPs that, like, basically launched an entire genre of games on the Nintendo. Like, you had The Legend of Zelda, you had Super Mario Brothers, and Castlevania was really high up there as, like, one of their tentpole franchises.
I mean, this IP alone has what some people consider some of the greatest games of all time.
I would say
Symphony of the Night.
Symphony of the Night
Super
is...
Castlevania IV.
Well, they are definitely the genre-defining games. Like, usually for their era, they're very... This is the benchmark of what everything else builds around or up to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like I said, a lot of people consider them some of the greatest games of all time.
Yeah.
And
rightfully so.
It's kind of funny because I feel like Castlevania got dealt the same hand as like Mega Man, where it's like you know what Mega Man is, but how come they're not getting more entries? How come they're not as prominent as like a Super Mario or a Legend of Zelda? Because Castlevania, it created a whole genre that is still being mimicked to this day.
Co-created.
Well, yeah, I suppose that's true.
You can't say created because there is a reason there's 2 names in it.
Well,
Metroid did it first.
Right.
I hate that. I hate that so much when people think that, like, Symphony of the Night...
Castlevania, they refined...
Symphony of the Night, it's like, they created the Metroidvania style. It's like,
well, no.
It literally says Metroidvania. Like, they copied the Metroid.
And
Super Metroid.
It's not Castleroid.
Yeah.
Yes, but, I mean, you attribute Symphony of the Night to... basically
taking off of the genre.
Yes. Kind of like how we were talking earlier off thing about how
to me,
while Cave Story came first, Shovel Knight is what really launched the pixel art revival into prominence.
They took Super Metroid and made a lot of improvements to it and made it look really just great, and I think that's why Symphony of the Night is just as fondly remembered.
And then slid in the RPG stuff with the leveling system.
With the leveling up stuff. That's right, because you didn't have any of that with Super Metroid. No. But I think that's why that was able to define the genres, because it really took what was already a really good formula and improved it to almost the point of perfection.
Yeah, pretty
much.
Then
there was another thing I think that helped propel it too was... I don't know of a single game in the Castlevania series that has bad music.
No, that's true.
Its music, like all of them have like amazing music. Even the weakest titles in the series have amazing music.
The Castlevania games on the N64, at least like Castlevania 64, like it still has a very ambient and like spooky soundtrack, and I really like that one.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mm-hmm. I haven't played 64 in a very, very long time. And I know I played Legacy of Darkness. God, I don't even remember. Mm-hmm. But from what I remember, the music was always pretty good in it.
Yep,
maybe we'll have to play those sometime.
I got
them both.
I wouldn't mind playing through those ones and then like the PS2 ones.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I would love to play. And even those had fantastic fucking soundtracks. Mm-hmm. I don't know why those don't get more acclaim than they do. The PS2 titles. Because they're fan-fucking-tastic.
Curse of Darkness did, but the other one didn't.
Lament?
Yeah.
Yeah. Curse of Darkness was basically a 3D version of Symphony of the Night.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. I mean, Hector was based... I mean, hell, they brought Hector into the animated series.
Yeah, that's true.
That's how influential that one was. Like, the Devil Forges and stuff made it into the Netflix animated Castlevania. Like, so...
yeah. Which that tells you how strong the franchise is. And that animated series was fan-fucking-tastic.
And there's a new one coming, which makes me even happier.
That'll be cool.
They're doing a season 5?
Yeah, it's going to be...
Isn't it more centered on, like, Richter?
It's going to be Richter and shit.
Oh, nice. Very cool.
That'll be fun.
But we'll start from the humble beginnings. Obviously, everybody knows it's Konami, It's the developer. Later, once like Lords of Shadow came out, that was Mercury Steam and Kojima Productions. But
did Kojima Productions have anything to do with the Lords of Shadow?
I think they had a hand in it.
Maybe just a producing credit or something.
I think so.
Oh, okay. Huh.
But but on the Nintendo, it was Konami, and it came out on the Famicom in 1986 for Japan, 87 for us.
At the time, Konami was probably one of the only studios, along with Nintendo, obviously, that could publish their own developed games. They were able to both develop and publish the games. Not many companies could actually do that. You had companies that were specific for developing the games, but then you had some that had the backing so that they could actually publish the games. But Konami was huge at the time, and they could actually do both.
Yeah, especially, too, because 86... That's really early in the Nintendo's life cycle.
Well, 86 in Japan, right?
Right.
So that was 3 years into its life cycle.
Oh, that's true.
Because it came out in 1983. Ours was 85, so it was 2 years in our life cycle. Castlevania Nocturne, official teaser trailer.
So that's the instead of being season 5, it's Nocturne. So because they're jumping to a new era.
You know, I just have to say this, and as the shock I never saw coming. Resident Evil. It wasn't good. It didn't make it to a second season.
No, it didn't. I saw it got canceled.
It's been canceled.
Yeah, shocker.
So
yes, 1986 on the Famicom. 1997 rolled around. Symphony of the Night.
Yep.
Completely overhauled the entire Castlevania franchise.
And its 10-year anniversary.
Yeah.
In the United States. Yeah.
So it completely changed the formula. And then 2010, we got the Lords of Shadow series, which had 3 titles. Which again.
Oh yeah, that's right. It did have the 3 titles. Yeah, the 3DS one. Yep.
Which also came out on consoles as well.
Until later, it got the HD upgrade.
Yeah. Did it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It came out on what?
PS3, I think.
Really?
And 360.
I think it's on
mistaken.
PS4 and stuff as well.
Oh.
Yeah, it might be. I'm pretty sure it is.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Huh.
They did a console version.
Oh, okay.
But, they had 3 titles in it. But we'll start, since this is so vast, we're just going to start with the first 3 for the Nintendo.
Yes, Castlevania 1, 2, and 3. Yep.
Castlevania 1, 2, and 3. So obviously, you play as good old Simon Belmont, whipping and wailing his way through Dracula's castle.
I think you mean Simon Belmondo.
Did you know that was not his original intended name?
What?
Simon Belmont.
No.
His original name, they wanted to call him Peter Dante, who was the grandson of Christopher Dante.
Ah.
I don't know why they changed it.
Like, Dante is in, like, Dante's Inferno?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe.
That would make sense, yeah.
But, yeah, so you play Simon Belmont, you go through, how many stages was it? 6? 7?
Yes, 6.
6 levels, just whipping and slinging.
And jumping.
I mean, it was a phenomenon. It's still a great fucking game to this day, and hard as shit.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah.
The first level is not terribly hard.
No, of course.
And the second level, it's pretty easy. Third level starts getting a little bit more difficult, but it's easy to overcome. Level 4, they start really turning up the difficulty, and then level 5, it's like they turn it up full volume to 8, 9, and then by level 6, you're just like, what the hell is this?
And it's a proper difficulty because enemies are designed
curve,
and spaced in a way to make you like actually think about what you're doing rather than just being, I'm going to bludgeon you with more damage than you can take.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, it has, you get your whip upgrades, which I've gone on the record in saying I hate. Always hated that in Castlevania games.
Why?
I just think it's a really stupid mechanic. You start with the weakest whip, no matter what! The first candle you smack is going to have your next whip upgrade.
Okay.
And then I think 3 after that is your final one, maybe? 2 or 3? Just what's the point?
There's 3 total.
There's never a point where you're not going to have your full whip.
2.
I think it's 2.
Yeah, it's 2.
I've just never seen the point of that whip upgrade system.
Instead of just like having it
just
right off the bat.
give me the full whip.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think it's something they pulled in from like the shooters. Like the ship-based
shooter era,
because if you notice, when you play any of the Konami like the shooter games where you died, you go back to your base and you have to collect all the different upgrades again. I think it's that type of design mentality was brought over
That could be because
it may have been, yeah.
We're still coming in off the arcade era.
Yeah.
And
so like it makes sense that they still had a very particular way of thinking about how power-ups and stuff should be handled, and it could have been done better. It could have been after you do X certain, kill certain boss, get certain upgrade type thing. But yeah, they still weren't quite to that level of thinking.
Yeah, I thought about that too, in the sense of like arcade styles, because if you die, like you said, the first candle you get is, regardless, it's going to replace whatever that item was, and it's going to be your first whip upgrade.
Right.
So you literally may lose out on points, you may lose out on hearts, you may lose out on something else. So it's kind of like you shouldn't have died, so here, we'll give you your whip upgrade, but guess what? You're not getting whatever it is that the lower score, lower heart count, like whatever it ends up being.
Miss a sub-weapon, potentially.
Yeah. That's why I always liked Bloodlines, and the fact that once you got that whip upgrade, there was one even beyond that, which was like a super one, because it not only gave you a stronger attack, but it gave you like a stronger sub-weapon. Mm-hmm. And it was like your ultimate sub-weapon based on the character you had. And then if you got hit, you lost it. It's like, okay, I'm alright with that. You know what I mean? But still, you have to work up to that. And I don't know, I've never seen the point of why they have an upgrade system of that degree.
Yeah, I think it's just something that just kind of came to be expected at that point.
Maybe.
Yeah, it has to be something with design philosophy of the era.
Yeah.
That's a good thought.
And looking back, it's one of those things. Yeah, we view it now as something kind of dumb, because it must have been something for like that Konami liked doing, because like Zelda, when you got your upgrades, they were permanent. And so there were games at the time that did do the permanent sort of upgrades, but yeah, it must have been just one of those things where Konami was much more arcade focused. And
I think so. I think a lot of their stuff was more of like arcade games, arcade style goals where you're just trying to get a high score.
Yeah. So, and yeah, I don't...
But
there's not too much you can really say about gameplay, because it's
I mean, it really it introduced a lot of like the normal mechanics of like what video games are now, where you have you start the level, you end, there's a boss at the end of every level. There are different sub levels, like you can go through doors and then they start doing like you're in 1-1, 1-2, which it was interesting
segments.
It was interesting because with these segments, like it was very fluid. Like you didn't know where like it always felt like 1-1 and like 1-2, like it's the same level. It's just separated by a door. I never understood that part.
Ninja Gaiden kind of did the same thing.
Well, Ninja Gaiden did, but it's like they literally transitioned their levels to where you had a cutscene, and then if you came back and you weren't on that, like you didn't fight the boss, then you were on the next segment of that level, which made a lot more sense to me.
Yeah.
But I like that they took a lot of the lore of just, I would say, like universal monsters with the bosses. Like you had a giant bat, you had the mummies, you had Dracula, you had Death, you had all of these. Frankenstein's monster and Igor. Yeah, you had all of the different, like all the bosses really were like universal monsters.
Well, and even the fishmen are based off the creature from
the Black Lagoon. Yeah.
So yeah, that's their creature designer and stuff was clearly influenced by the universal monsters. Like there's no way around it.
Yeah. No. But I mean, it's fine because each one of the levels looks just absolutely gorgeous. Depending on where you are, first level is like the inside of a house. The third level is like you're underground.
That's the cave, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like the cave with the water and stuff. And 5, you're, I don't know where you are, but you're, oh god, I just remember those straight, like the straightaways where it's the pictures hanging and the Medusa heads with also the Axe Knights. Oh god, that was so terrifying and just so freaking hard. And then with like as you're walking up to Dracula at the end of the game, you've got the big moon in the corner and stuff as you're walking up, and the music just like it just builds perfectly.
Which became a titular thing.
It's easy to see why it was such a beloved franchise and why they continued to kind of emulate that kind of style. In
games. It, like, I even coined like the big thing with knockback. I mean, knockback became such a staple in that generation of gaming.
Yes, it did.
That, I mean, Mega Man did it.
Yeah, and I wonder what came first. Was it Castlevania or was it Ninja Gaiden? I think in Japan it may have even been Castlevania.
I think so.
That came back, that pioneered the whole knockback system.
Yeah, because Mega Man had knockback as well, but
not as bad.
It wasn't like, because at least in Mega Man you could change direction in the air.
Yeah, no, it was
and
more of like
Gaiden,
the Ninja Gaiden. You could not. No, you could not. You just got knocked back, and you hoped to God that there was a platform under you.
But like, because Castlevania had a goofy jump.
Even the original arcade for Ninja Gaiden was 88.
Oh, serious? Oh, okay. So so Castlevania did come way before, because then it was ported to the Nintendo in '89.
Was it really that late?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
See, for some reason, I thought it was 87.
Yeah, I thought it was 87.
I thought it was 87, but it was. Then what was it?
December '88 for NES for Japan, and then March '89 for us.
Yeah, and then 1990 or 91 was Ninja Gaiden 2,
90.
and then 90, and then 92 was Ninja Gaiden 3.
Master System one. Yeah.
Well, I do want to say something. Everybody, I apologize. There's a very enthusiastic cricket somewhere in here.
Sure is.
So you're going to be hearing this cricket. I'm going to put it up as a co-star. Because it's basically trying... No, it's fine, Paul.
Co-starring Chirpy.
Yeah, we're going to call him Chirpy the Cricket. So if you hear cricket chirping, he's been with us for the past few recordings, I think.
I don't know what he's surviving on either, so...
I don't either. He's a very pissy cricket, though. But yes, he's very vocal. Chirpy, knock it the fuck off unless you got something good to add.
Man. Yeah.
Or unless we have bad awkward pauses, and then you can chirp.
Yeah, chirp all you want.
Pet peeve. I hate crickets.
I know
them
you do.
So much.
So, and then the first Castlevania even had really good, I think, fantastic music.
Yes,
oh, yeah.
I mean, it's got some of the most iconic music.
100%.
It's up there with, like, Mega Man, I think, for NES music, for, like, some of, like, the most catchy and, like, iconic.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I mean...
Konami, man. They knew how to compose
Konami
soundtracks. Just like Capcom,
they knew how to do a soundtrack.
Yeah.
I mean, you had some developers that just knew their shit when it came to music.
Yeah.
Like I said, Taito was another good one that did fantastic fucking soundtracks to their games.
Yeah. I think the only, like, real drawback I in my opinion for the original one is their choices of, like, colors sometimes.
The graphics.
Well, like, the graphics themselves are fine. It's just their choices of the color palettes.
I know what you mean. Yeah, some of the color palettes just never seem to, like, match.
Well, and they went with contrasting colors on purpose, but but I just think that some of the colors they chose are just ugly.
Yeah.
Well, if you're talking about ugly colors, let's move on to Castlevania II: Simon's Quest.
Yeah, well,
which has a very muddy, lots of grays, lots of browns, it's just a very darkly toned game.
And so before, I feel like we have to preface this, even though we've talked about it before, but if people are unaware, is that I don't know if it was a directive through Nintendo, but we saw this a lot in the Nintendo era, where you had a very successful #1 game, whether it's Super Mario Brothers 1, Legend of Zelda 1, Castlevania 1.
Mega Man's really the only one that never changed.
Yeah, that never really changed from it. But you had a lot of games like that where they had a very, this is the way that it plays, it's a platformer, or this is what it is. And then they completely flipped it upside down for their #2, which is why you had Super Mario Brothers 2 the way it looked. You had Castlevania II: Simon's Quest the way it looked. You had Adventure of Link the way it looked. It's because I think Nintendo said that if something was really popular, they didn't want to simply just rehash what they've already done. They wanted to create the next new big thing. And once they realized that the #2s didn't really sell as well as the original ones, that's when they started going back to improving on what they had already done for the #1s.
It's almost like they tried to avoid, like, gaming burnout.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Because how many game series now do you see where it's like they're 4 titles in, and it's just literally the same thing.
Game. Well,
you know,
the Madden.
Tetris would like a word with you.
Yeah.
But the only problem is there's never any pleasing anybody. Because if you do the same thing, people are going to complain. How come you're not changing? But then when you change, people say, "Well, how come you're not doing it like the original?"
You're not doing it like the original games? Yeah.
To be honest, at least with on the NES era, I think it was. The first game is okay, cool. We've established our foot in. We're doing this. A lot of these number 2 titles, to me, it seemed like they were like over ambitious on what they could do after the success of their first game.
Or they were just experimental.
I think it was just experimental.
That's part of ambition, though, is being like, I want to try something different. Yeah. Because like the first Castlevania, like I mean, even Zelda's a great example. The first one was great. And then they're like, so well, how can we take what was great about it and add something that'll wow, but be even greater? That doesn't necessarily work.
It basically...
That's why like the world map changed, and you have the side scroller and stuff. And
it meshed the original Legend of Zelda with like Mario Brothers, because now you have Legend of Zelda, but now it's a platformer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Even
though it wasn't a platformer, because there wasn't very much platforming in it, but it's
they wanted to do that. They wanted to go to that like view, so they could add more detail, maybe. But I think the Castlevania 2 was the same way, but I think they also wanted to add more story directly into it.
Oh, yeah.
They did, and, I mean, with Castlevania 2, I don't think necessarily that the design was the problem.
No. That was the least of their problems.
The big major problem was the fact that the game was so cryptic.
It was translated very
well. I would say over here, yes, because it was translated so poorly. I don't know how cryptic it is in Japan.
It's a terrible night for a curse.
Yeah.
But yes, Simon's Quest, which released in Japan in 87, 88 for us, a mere 1 year after the first one. So, I mean, that's a very short chunk of time. And especially to create a whole different style of game from scratch.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean... Yeah.
I don't know if it's so much I'd say scratch. I think it's still used the same engine as the first game, I believe. Just modified.
You know what's funny is that, so as a kid, I had played Castlevania 1. Mm-hmm. And it was actually the first game I ever truly remember being scared of while I was playing. And I never played number 2 and never played number 3. It wasn't until I started seeing the games in GameStop. When like Funko-Land / GameStop, when they were still selling Nintendo games, because you always had Castlevania 1 and Castlevania 3 were like $7.99, $9.99. Castlevania 2, without fail, would always be $4.99. And I'm like, that game must not be as good as the other ones, because that one is always cheaper than the other two. Like, why is that? And I didn't realize that there was such a hatred. Like, I feel like...
I almost wonder what they go for now.
I feel like the pendulum is swinging, though, where it's like people tend to want to gravitate towards like, oh, this game is like, everybody says it's so bad. It's like, well, you know what? I'm going to find the love in it. And so then people start gravitating towards like, okay, it's not as bad as we thought.
The same thing happened with Zelda, though, too. Like, first one came out, people loved it. Second one came out, people hated it. Third one came out, and people were like, "Oh, the second one wasn't too bad."
Exactly.
And it wasn't until the third one that people hated the second.
Yes.
Same with Mario. Mario 2 gets a lot of hate, but it was actually very well received.
It was well received. It sold like gangbusters.
Yeah, that's a weird...
The same thing is Zelda 2. Everybody is like, oh, that certainly is the black sheep of the family. It's like, well, you know what, though? It didn't stop people from like saying in Nintendo Power that it was the best game that came out in 1989.
It can't be the black sheep of the family, considering stuff like CDI and stuff exists. So.
Yeah, that's true.
And to be honest, I mean, I've said it many times, Adventure of Link is my favorite Zelda game.
Yeah.
Of everything that's come out, it's by far one of my favorites. Because I don't know, something about it. It's just, it's so much more fun to me. Maybe because it feels quicker? I don't know. Something about Zelda 2 just really resonated with me. Maybe it's because of my experience with it as a kid.
It could have just been what you were, how you were playing it as a kid and stuff,
With like Castlevania 2, like they wanted more sense of exploration, which I got.
Yeah.
But like, between the way they translated it to where, it's cryptic as hell, so stuff doesn't make sense, and then just like using like certain items. What is it? You have to have the stake to break those orbs or whatever.
Yeah, you get the stakes.
And like it's one of those things where it's just like it doesn't really make sense.
Well, to me, one of the things that they also did too is they took things that were fundamentally understood in the first one and then flipped them on their sides. Like how you would collect hearts because that was what used your sub-weapon.
Yeah,
well,
then, your fuel, your energy.
Then in number 2, they turned hearts into your currency.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you can't just throw, like, no, you can't just change something this drastic and, like, tell me now that, okay, you were collecting these to use your weapon, but now this is your currency. Like, what? Why?
Yeah.
That and just,
it makes you learn stuff over again that you didn't think that you even had to learn in the first place.
That's true. Well, we'll start off with the beginning of it. Obviously, everybody knows that Symphony of the Night just didn't come out of nowhere.
No.
Simon's Quest is what kicked off...
Basically, yeah.
The idea of the free exploration, the needing a specific item to get to a certain spot kind of thing. It was like Metroid.
And obviously, yeah, I was going to say the huge Metroid influence that they were like, I like what that game's doing, but let's keep our horror theme.
It basically took Castlevania and it meshed up Metroid. Because, they basically said, we love the aesthetics of the scary stuff in castles, dark overtones, and we love what Metroid does where you get certain items and then it unlocks like certain new parts of the levels for you. So we're going to incorporate that into our game, and thus you had Castlevania II.
Yeah.
And it's Quest.
It was one of the things I loved about it because it's like while you started with like the basic whip, you'd spend the hearts to get like the chain whip, and then you'd get like the flame whip until I think was the flame whip the best, or there might be a better one. I don't
remember the weapons in that one.
Yeah, it's been so long. My brother Adam knows Simon's Quest like the back of his hand. He fucking loves that game. Well, we might need him for that. I'm good at it. I've gotten 3 or 4 of Dracula's parts, but I've never beaten it.
Fortunately enough, I'm pretty sure that there are Nintendo Power walkthroughs.
I'm sure.
Like in the magazines and stuff, because it was a very well received game and it was a huge release back in the day. Yeah.
But like you had mentioned, the drawback to a lot of these great ideas were just how poorly it was translated and just how cryptic it was.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there were certain areas where you had to destroy floors that gave no indication that you could destroy the floors to get to something where you could buy a crystal to do something that you just had no clue.
Yeah.
You would never know to do that. It was just through either A, Nintendo Power, or just, whoops, throw some shit on the ground. And
the funny thing is, they keep that going forward in the franchise, though.
That is true.
Symphony of the Night has, and like some of the later games, like they have just obscure, this wall can be broken open to get something to get a different ending.
Yeah.
But I do love the fact, though, that it took until, what was it, Lords of Shadow, when they explained the wall meat.
That's
Mirror of Fate.
Mirror of Fate.
Mirror of Fate, yeah.
Yeah, the wall meat. But, so you're collecting I think it's 5 pieces of Dracula.
Symphony.
Yeah, I suppose that's
true.
It
is. It's the heart, the fang, the
rib,
the eye, and
something else. Heart?
Yeah.
Did you say heart?
Heart, fang, rib, eye.
And
was
tooth, right?
That's fang.
Or nail?
It could be,
It could be the nail.
Could be the nail. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're collecting the pieces of Dracula so you can basically get rid of the curse that he placed on the Belmont clan in their previous encounter.
Yeah.
That's basically the story. So that's basically what you're doing, is just wandering around the world collecting pieces. But it's cool because you actually can use certain pieces of him as like tools. Like you use his rib as a shield. Which I don't understand how that works, but his rib is essentially a shield for him later. So you can block projectiles. It was a very, very well crafted idea that just was kind of
they kind of like
needed some
fumbled
polish.
The juggling a bit.
Yeah.
I think had they released this in another year or two, like really gave it some polish, this game would have been a perfect like follow-up.
Yeah.
I think they could have worked out a lot of the weird, goofy things that ended up happening to it.
Unfortunately, that's kind of a thing with the NES era, was how fast they rushed some sequels out.
That's true. That's true.
So I was just looking up on price charting, and it looks like the prices of the cart-only games, like Castlevania 1, 2, and 3, their prices reflect how people feel about the games.
Really?
So,
1's probably the most expensive.
no.
Really?
3 is.
Wow.
3 cart-only is about 40, I think it was like $40 or $45.
That's not bad.
1 is $25. 2 is $15.
Wow.
Oh, that's terrible.
So it's, yeah, I think everybody, like, and we'll talk about it soon enough, if not now, but Castlevania 3, it really took everything that was great about the first one, improved it in every single way, and it became basically the go-to Castlevania game on the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Oh, yeah.
100%. It basically took Castlevania 1, but you could have additional help in the form of
Different characters.
of Grant, of Sypha.
Yeah, that's right.
of,
I forgot about that.
Grant, and Alucard.
And Alucard, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh my god, they introduced Alucard in 3.
Yeah.
Not only could you have additional characters that could help you, but you had pick-a-paths, basically. You could either take the upper path, the lower path, and they had a lot of different variety to, like, what those paths would be, and a lot of, like, either, like, some were easier, some were harder.
Yeah.
So it basically took everything that was great about Castlevania 1, and it put a huge amount of replayability onto the game. So that you could just play it over and over and over again and never get the same experience twice. So I think, honestly, that's why, like, Castlevania 3 is far and away the best one that came out on the system, and the one that is the fondest remembered for the NES era.
Oh, 100%. But going back to 2, because 3 kind of shares some similarities in the sense that Castlevania 2 also had multiple endings, which was something
That's right, it did.
Yes, it was based on how quickly you beat the game.
Yes.
Which, I looked it up, how to get the best ending, you have to beat it within 8-day cycles. 8 cycles from day to night, day to night.
That seems really quick.
Because
Because those cycles are not, I mean, they're not long, but they're
they feel long. That's, honestly, I feel like that's most people's biggest complaint of the game is it's a terrible night for a curse.
Yeah.
It feels like the daytime is twice as short.
Yes.
As the nighttime. Which
I get.
Could all be.
Yeah.
I really don't know. I've never actually sat there and timed it.
Yeah.
But that was the worst part, because once night fell, all the villagers left. You couldn't go in any houses. You basically had to wait for daytime to come.
Yeah.
And like I said, based on how long it took you to complete the game, gave you different endings. And to be honest, if you look up the different endings, none of them sound all that great. They're all pretty depressing.
Don't they all end up with the gravestone on the hill or whatever?
Yeah, it's basically he's dead. It's very strange.
He dies at the end?
Well, I mean, eventually. I don't know.
Well,
I think,
spoiler alert!
Well,
I think the date changed.
I think
okay.
I think I think they're all like much later. It's not like he beats Dracula that dies.
Yeah. He just lives out his life. And then,
It's a very... You'd have to look it up, because I've never beaten it, but it's... Yeah, none of the endings are particularly all that great, like, in context of the game, but... I appreciate Simon's Quest for what it is. I actually really love his design. I think the design for Simon is probably the best looking.
Oh yeah, for
the
sure.
3.
Oh, definitely.
I love the red and the black.
His design, I think, is what directly inspired. Was it Leon and Lament?
Oh yeah, maybe.
They're almost.
I can see that.
If you look at their outfits, they're almost identical.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. And it's just funny too, because I was thinking about this. There's only one other time in the entire series that Simon's Quest is directly referenced, and it's in Harmony of Dissonance for the GBA. You play as Just Belmont, who is the grandson of Simon.
Used.
Yes. But he talks about his grandfather Simon defeating Dracula to lift the curse off the Belmont clan. Which, that was a good one too. I like
nice
Harmony
lore.
of Dissonance.
Yeah.
That's kind of a neat thing too, is like how much a lot of these games connect.
Yeah, oh yeah.
In terms of like the Belmont clan and all that
Well,
shit.
and they've done a good job where it's like, unlike... it's a great series, I love it, but their timeline is just nasty. Zelda has an incredible... Like, I love every Zelda game, but their timeline is just.
Well,
Castlevania is almost the exact opposite, where it's like
but at least,
it has a very tight timeline. Like it stays in the lore very
very well,
very linear. Yes.
Yeah. But we've talked about it before. Zelda's clearly they were never meant to be.
I don't think they were meant to be connected.
It's only because of fan pressure that they're acknowledged as connected.
That's true.
With the exception of like Zelda 1 and 2, like they're not connected. They're all
even I would say Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask were connected too, because that's the Majora's Mask follows directly the events that end at at
but
Ocarina
like
of
for the
Time.
most part they're not supposed to be connected. Whereas Castlevania is telling the overall story of Dracula fighting these various
the Belmonts
families
and stuff,
throughout the ages,
and how it's affected the families and stuff.
The only time it gets a little muddied is the PS2 era. Because they introduce Matthias and all of these, like the
Matthias who becomes Dracula,
pre-Dracula, like when Dracula becomes Dracula, but he's not Dracula until all this other shit happens.
Well, that was one thing I actually did not like about Lords of Shadow, actually, and I mean we're kind of jumping the gun here, but is at the end of it when the character that you are, like basically Gabriel, he turns into like Dracula. I never understood that.
I kind of thought that was a cool touch.
I mean, I like that touch.
I mean, it was a cool touch.
Like Dracula is fighting off his own clan.
I mean, I
thought
it was a cool touch, but I think I was under the impression that wasn't Lords of Shadow supposed to be almost like a prequel to...
No, it's a complete reboot.
It was supposed to be a reboot.
Oh, it's just a reboot.
It's a hard reboot for a new timeline.
Okay, well then never mind.
It just didn't make sense because wasn't he a Belmont?
Yeah, he's a Belmont.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make sense, but I guess it kind of does because
that
would explain why the Belmont clan has to fight them
in the first place.
Yeah.
Which would make sense, I suppose, if you think about it.
But yeah, I was always under the impression that it was like a prequel that took place like
it's a
years before like the events of Castlevania 1.
No, it's a hard reboot for the series.
Yeah, because like you said, Leon Belmont was supposed to be like the first one.
Yeah.
Because if you've never played Lament of Innocence for the PS2, I assume.
Not yet. I think I have that one. Which is the cheaper of the two? Lament or Curse of Darkness?
Lament's cheaper, I believe.
Pretty close, if I'm not mistaken. They're really not that expensive.
Although Curse, I think might be cheaper if you get the Xbox version.
It's possible.
Because that was released on PS2 and the original Xbox.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's weird.
Yeah, I have Lament of Innocence.
Yes.
Okay. Lament, the final boss is actually Death. It's not even Dracula.
Yeah.
It's very weird. Which actually is a pretty cool fight. But, I mean, other than the fact that a lot of people kind of frown upon Simon's Quest, and I know there was actually a fan retranslation of the game that was re-released on like emulators and stuff, where it made the night cycles shorter and actually retranslated all the text.
Oh,
it actually makes the game
corrected
great.
Everything, like all the gripes that people had with the game in the first place.
Because I know like the biggest thing was the kneeling in front of the cliff to get the tornado to sweep you up, because I think somebody says something about pray at the edge of the cliff or something like that, and you're like, what are they talking about? Yeah. Even though, to be honest, I figured that out as a kid.
Yeah, but...
It wasn't that cryptic.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, I mean, was it just something where you were just, like, you just happened to be pushing down at that particular location and you just lucked out?
Maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not that you figured it out, it's just that you did something that you... weren't really paying attention to, and you somehow like overcame it.
It was one of those things too, because in the first Castlevania, I know there were secrets if you if you kneeled at certain spots, it would create treasures to pop up.
That is true.
I thought maybe that could be a thing in that one, so I remember going around and just starting to kneel in certain spots. You were just using the history
of that, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, granted, if you've never played the first one, you would never know that.
No, that's true, yeah.
You know, whatever.
That's actually good deductive reasoning, too.
Yeah.
That was cool.
I'm a smart gamer. Hey, you guys don't give me enough credit.
No.
Watching your gameplay nowadays doesn't to demonstrate that, though.
Fair enough. But yes, just like Adventure of Link, Simon's Quest holds a small place of adoration in my heart.
Yeah, I appreciate it for what it tried to do. Mm-hmm. I do still kind of like its shortcomings are definitely one of those kind where it's like, well, you guys would have, especially in the translation team, if they would have taken more time and done things right, it might not have been hated as much as it is.
I kind of wish they would do a remake.
And I'm
This is
surprised,
a game that
I'm surprised they haven't.
Yeah, it would
actually.
be especially in the era where all those games.
Konami.
Yeah, Konami doesn't make games anymore.
Especially in that era of like the DS games where that style was so huge and booming, that would have been a good time to do a Castlevania 2 remake.
But yeah, to be quite honest, I mean, we haven't played it on the channel yet for like Castlevania 2, but I'm honestly I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
Me too.
I can't wait to play that one just because I've never really played a whole lot of it. Like, even as an adult, I haven't played a lot of it, but it's one of those that I'm really looking forward to experiencing it.
Oh yeah, like the castles you have to go through to get the parts are actually pretty neat.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. So from there, fast forward another couple years, you have Castlevania 3.
1990.
Yep, 90 for us, 89 for Japan. So a couple years after 2, you had Castlevania 3: Dracula's Curse. It's a prequel to the first one. Now you're playing as Trevor Belmont. And,
Well, yeah, we already touched on, like, the other characters are added. And
it basically created a whole lore of, like, the Belnades. Is it Belnade? Belnatus? I don't know how it is.
I think, well, in the I want to say in the Netflix series, it's like Belnadish or something like that. They say it almost like with an SH sound.
Because are they from? Well, I don't remember where they're from. The
Belnads?
No, the Belnadish.
Belnadish. Yeah.
Belnadish. Where they're from? Because they're close friends with the Belmonts.
Yeah.
From what I remember.
Oh, I don't rember.
I don't know. But they're brought up again, too, in, like, other iterations of the Castlevania series.
But it widens the lore where you have, like, Grant Dynasty helping with, like, everything. Alucard, where you find out that he does not like Dracula. He is the son of Dracula, but he wants to help to bring down his father because he thinks that, like, his ways of doing things are just not good.
Yeah.
And then you've got Sypha Belnadish, and just I absolutely love that game. I think it's super hard, but at the same time it is definitely probably one of the top 10 games on the entire system.
Oh yeah, I mean so much so that when
Iga recopied it.
Yeah, Iga basically remade that game with Bloodstained.
Yeah.
The Curse of the Moon and
oh, that's right. When he did the
2D one that wasn't his main company, it was one of the other other company did it, but it's literally just a copy paste of Castlevania 3 with new stuff.
And again, this was another one, multiple endings depending on either who your partners were, or if you didn't even have one. Because I didn't realize you could actually play through the game without even having a partner.
Without actually getting a partner?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Because I mean, you share the same life bar, and your sub weapons change, but that's about it. But I mean,
well, you can actually you have to, like, defeat them in order to break them of the curse, and then they join your team, correct?
Pretty much, yes.
But you have a choice when they say, like, will you let...
You can just jump over and walk
will
away.
You let me join your team or something like that? You can say no.
Right.
So, interesting that, I don't think I've ever done that,
and
though.
again, he recopied that in Bloodstained, because you can jump over them and choose not to have any of them join you when you're playing as, what is this, Zangetsu?
Zangetsu.
Like,
Zangetsu,
it's like you can have them join you in that one. You can walk away from them, and I think you can kill them.
You can kill them to get their powers.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So you can basically make Zangetsu have all of the abilities of the characters if you just kill them. Or, like I said, you can ignore them all, or you can have them join you.
Clearly, Iga liked that one when he went and he was like, let's make another one.
Yeah. No, yeah.
But again, it's introduced a lot of fan favorite characters in Castlevania 3. Sypha and Alucard became like huge.
Staples. Absolutely staples.
And I know
poor Grant, I don't think ever got any love.
But he makes another appearance though.
In what?
Symphony of the Night.
Grant?
And Sypha. The dead ones.
That's right. When you fight the three of them, you fight the reanimated. Yeah, that's right.
They do make. He becomes an enemy at one point.
Yeah.
The only time he's ever
I was going to say, poor Grant. Yeah, he was such a cool character. It's
still one of those things where it's like, okay, it's cool to see that, they're bringing these characters that Alucard knew to the future, and he has to end up fighting what were once his friends. So, like, there was like some overarching like thing that Ego was like, okay, yeah, I like this, let's do this. So,
but otherwise, gameplay-wise, it went right back to its roots. It plays exactly like 1.
Yes,
better.
It
It controls better.
Yes.
Oh, much better. The graphics are just so superior to the first one. But then again, you literally had 3-4 years of development time to figure out like what the limitations were and what you could really do to push it to the limit. So I mean, it's just everything. The sound quality, the graphics, the characters, the environments, everything was just so good.
Yeah, the abilities of just some of your partners were amazing. Granted, I think Grant only had the knife and the axe, but he could climb walls.
Couldn't he also do the bigger jump?
He could jump higher,
Yep.
so you could make some of the bigger jumps. Sypha had the spells.
Alucard had the bat.
Alucard had the bat. You could just fly around, which that's actually how I beat the game, was with Alucard.
I remember
The one time I've ever beaten it.
There's a couple of paths you could only get by being the bat and flying over like a weird pit to like get to the.
That's what was kind of cool, is there were different paths based on who you had.
Yeah.
But no, the game could be played with anybody, which was the coolest part about it. It was kind of like shortcuts.
Well, and that's actually a question I had. Are the different paths the same length, or do they like shorten or expand the game?
I haven't played enough of the game to really know. I like I said, I beat it many years ago. I want to say I beat it around the time we started the channel.
I beat it on an emulator, but I don't really remember too much of it, because that's one of those ones where it's like when I had the emulator on got a computer years and years ago, but it was one of those. I would just go through the list of I know this series. Let's just start playing these ones, and I beat it on there, and it was I don't remember too much of it because like it was just. A lot of those games were a blur when you're playing through so many of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't think I've ever personally beat it myself. I probably made it about halfway through the game or 3/4 of the way through the game, but that was about it.
Yeah, it's... I think they learned a lot for how to like shape the franchise with that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
To be honest, like even I brought up like Symphony, like having some of those characters re-show up. I think like the way the characters had different like intentions is kind of seen in the later games too. Still.
Oh yeah. Especially if you get into some of the GBA ones and the DS ones.
I was gonna bring like the protagonists are clearly they're not just we're just gonna keep doing the generic Belmont with the whip and keep going with this. Let's do what's her name from Maclacia that does the glyphs.
Oh, fuck! What's her name?
I want to say it starts with an S.
Shanoa.
There we go.
Yeah.
But like the different characters are like they're while like you can see their previous like inspirations in some of Castlevania 3 for some of these other characters.
Yeah.
So
well, a lot of those characters even make returns. Like you, what's her face? She's in Aria and Dawn. She's
Yoko?
Yoko. Her she's part of the Belknighttish clan.
Yeah.
So it's like you kind of even see them, even though, well, it's Soma.
Yeah, Soma's the end.
Yeah, but he's not a Belmont.
He's Dracula.
Right. There is a Belmont, but I don't remember his name.
Is that's
the old the dude with the beard. He's in Dawn. When you choose the optional thing to become Dracula, and it unlocks the mock Castlevania 3 part of the game. Can't remember what his name is. But it basically becomes Castlevania 3. You have a Belmont, a Sypha, and Alucard. You get Alucard. Julius Belmont. There you go.
Yeah.
But I mean, Castlevania 3 even inspired things way down the line.
Oh yeah. Oh definitely.
Yeah, because like.
Yeah, that's right.
If you look at the top of the screen too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, look at that.
3 characters.
Which one was that one?
That's Julius
that was
mode.
No. Dawn of Sorrow.
Dawn of Sorrow.
There was the sequel to Aria for the GBA. That one was DS.
Yeah. Of course, it was DS. Dawn of Sorrow. DS.
DS.
Resident Evil Deadly Silence. Yeah.
God, Nintendo forcing that was weird.
But yes, Castlevania 3. It was like you said, went back to that Castlevania difficulty. Yeah. I mean, it was a tough. I remember one specific staircase where you're going up and it winds back and forth, and there's just the flaming shooting skull heads all along the walls.
I remember that.
Always sticks out in my mind because that was the hardest point in the game.
So freaking hard.
And even Dracula really was kind of a pain in the ass.
Oh yeah, he's always been a pain in the ass. I think, except for Simon's Quest, because you could really like
you could still knock
you
him.
could yeah.
There's a way I think you can just
with the holy water
spam the holy water
yep.
and
he just can't move, so you can spam it.
To be honest, the hardest Dracula is probably still Order of Ecclesia.
Yeah, Order of Ecclesia is probably the hardest one.
I don't think I've ever played that one.
He's got this one attack where he'll like do this giant like energy bubble, and if you don't turn to a bat and hide up in the corner, you get hit by it and it basically destroys
It's a one-hit
you.
kill.
Oh,
it's a one-hit kill.
Like, he's just mean in that. Well, then
Which,
again,
granted,
that
that one had
entire
different-
game is very hard.
Yes, that game goes back to like the legendary Castlevania difficulty.
Oh,
Things take away a lot of damage or a lot of health, and you
Bosses will destroy you.
Bosses are like even basic. Like you remember the Tin Man from Symphony of the Night?
Yeah.
He's a hard fucking enemy in that one.
Oh god.
He kicks the shit out of you.
Oh no.
It's weird.
I don't
like
like that.
But there's technically multiple endings to that one too, because you can. The whole idea is for you to get that glyph, and then you use it and banish Dracula,
sure.
but you kill yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very interesting. We'll get to that when we talk about the DS titles at a later date. But Castlevania 3. Anything else to go with it? I
don't think so. I mean, it's. I do like the fact, and you'll see this when we like display the game box and stuff like that. But you could win a trip to Dracula's castle. They had
that's right.
Konami had the sweepstakes for winning a trip to Dracula's castle in. I want to say it was either Romania or Transylvania or something like that.
It's Wallachia. It's Romania, I believe.
Yeah. So
I think it's Wallachia.
Yeah, in Romania. Yeah.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I've even got the cards still like in the box and stuff like that. So it's
it's technically Romania.
Yeah.
Castle Bran.
Yep. So, but honestly, other than that, I mean, it's honestly Nintendo. You could tell, or Konami, they hit their stride with Castlevania at that point. It's like it was really you could not top the series on the Nintendo anymore at that point, because Castlevania 3 did everything that it could, and it did it so darn well.
It was basically the height.
Yeah,
they couldn't possibly do better.
That's why we had to move on to either like the Super Nintendo or the Sega Genesis, because it's like you hit the ceiling at that point. There's nowhere to go but down.
Two vastly different experiences too.
Well, I mean, they could have stayed at that level too. They could have just capped out.
True, could have Mega Man'd it.
That's true.
I mean, Mega Man was basically the same for 6 titles until you got to the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, just adding some quality of life improvements along the way here and there, like with the slides and the charges and
no real dip, just a steady.
They could have done a Castlevania 4 on the NES, especially if they're coming out every 1 to 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, Nintendo was still going strong in '92.
Oh, very much so.
So,
they had just released the Super Nintendo the year prior to that in 1991.
Yeah.
So,
which brings us to Super Castlevania 4.
Not necessarily, because here we can actually divert.
Oh, that's true.
We are going to be playing Castlevania 3 right now. Where do you want to take the upper path to go to the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis era, or do you want to take the lower path and go to the Game Boy games?
Well, I mean,
technically we already fucked that up.
We could have already, because Castlevania came before 3.
Castlevania Adventure.
Sure, but I mean, we're not talking about these chronologically. I think we stick to like
we're
the
talking
systems
chronologically. We skipped over 3 games technically.
Yeah,
Vampire Killer, Haunted Castle, and then
Castlevania Adventure,
and Kid Dracula.
Kid Dracula is technically part of
Kid Dracula was because that was Konami. Yeah,
it is part of the franchise.
Yeah, that's true.
But honestly, we might as well talk about it. Well, this series also, as most of them did, traveled to the Game Boy.
Yeah, I'd rather do the Game Boy ones first, because these are the ones I've not played or seen much of.
I played the first and the third. I did not play the second.
I have played the second. It was a long time ago, so I can talk a little bit about it. I don't remember a whole heck of a lot, but I know that it was much better than the first one. So the first one was kind of a product of its time, and a product of the Nintendo was really trying to port as many games and like successful franchises as they could to the Game Boy to really help bolster the, I guess, the resale of their system, which They didn't really need to do, because I think just the fact that you had a portable system that could go with you anywhere and play games like Tetris and Super Mario Land, like, it was amazing to begin with. But you had games like Super Mario Land, you had games like Link's Awakening, and then, of course, you had the Castlevania Adventure, where they were taking some of their most successful IPs and just porting them to the Game Boy.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, from what I remember of the first one, it moves painfully slow.
It's a bit of a slog.
It is a slog, but when you think about the limitations that they had on the Game Boy, and they put an entire Castlevania story on the Game Boy, I think it's a worthy effort. I think they did a fantastic job with the limitations they had.
Looking at this, like, it's only 4 stages.
Yep.
You're talking the first one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's only 4 stages, no sub-weapons.
No sub-weapons, and
Hearts restore life.
I believe so, yes.
You get damaged, you lose your whip upgrades.
Correct.
Which, that's stupid.
So, the first game had the legendary Castlevania difficulty.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
It was hard, and I still, to this day, have not beaten it. Because I cannot beat Dracula at the very end. I cannot. I can't do it.
So this one, a little backstory. You play as Christopher Belmont. This is set about a century prior to the original. So, like 3, this is kind of a prequel of sorts.
Yeah.
I don't know where this falls in the timeline.
Where would, like, okay,
I'm not sure how
Castlevania
far...
3 is a prequel.
I'm not sure what Trevor
I mean,
is.
it may have just been kind of like a one-off story that they never really went back to.
It's possible, because even in a lot of these, like, side ones are never mentioned again.
Yeah.
Like, when have you ever heard of Sonia Belmont?
No, it was
outside
literally
of
just
Castlevania
Legends. Yeah, it
You've
was just
never
Legends.
heard of her.
No.
So, like, and they've
Was
never
she
made...
in the fighting game? Judgment?
We don't talk about Judgment.
Yes, we do. Judgment was awesome.
I loved Castlevania Judgment.
you
Go
really?
fuck yourself. That
Yes.
game was fan-fucking-tastic.
And the designs were cool.
Have you ever played it?
No, but I have it.
We will play it on
We're
the
playing
channel.
that at some point.
It's actually fun as fuck. It's
No,
really
it
good.
looks beautiful though.
It's gorgeous. It plays extremely well, I have to say.
Yeah.
It's like Soul Calibur.
It's like what?
It plays like Soul Calibur.
Oh, does it really?
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, 4 stages. Yeah,
But-
I don't know how much...
So they're pretty short stages, but I mean it's platforming and it's difficult because you are slogging around. There is still the classic Castlevania knockback.
Yeah.
As Kevin said, if you get hit, you lose your whip upgrades. So you really want to do as good as you possibly can without getting touched, because
See,
it will get harder.
This is where I feel like the upgrade system would make sense then.
Yeah.
Where you get hit, you lose it.
Yeah.
Okay. That gives me some incentive to be better. You know what I mean?
To not get hit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. As opposed to like the original trilogy where it's like I have it, I always have it till I'm dead.
Yeah.
Oh, I understand. I can get behind this theory of having to upgrade that. I'm okay with that.
So, but with the limitations, obviously they could only do so much. But I think honestly, Castlevania Adventure was a worthy. It was a good run that they had, and I think it translated pretty well. Castlevania Simon's Revenge, or Belmont's Revenge on the Game Boy came out, I want to say it was like a year afterwards, and it improved on what the first limitations were, because I believe you did have sub-weapons. It had 4 stages again, but these ones were not like a stage 1, 2, 3, 4. You could pick whichever one you wanted. There was no incentive to picking certain ones before other ones, so it was completely independent. You could pick any one of the levels in order to just play through them and experience
Goes
them.
Mega Man style.
Interesting.
It literally was Mega Man style.
Oh, and it's a password system.
And it is a password system too. So I mean, honestly, the thing that I remember the most from Belmont's Revenge is that I feel like it took the Mega Man approach too, of Mega Man 1 to Mega Man 2, because Belmont's Revenge was a hell of a lot easier than the second one, or than the first one was. So I remember beating it within like, I think 20 or 30 minutes.
Really?
It's a short game. It is a really short game, but it's really good.
I've never played it and or seen it, so you know what? I wouldn't mind playing some of these Game Boy ones on the channel.
We can play them on the Game Boy player. Yeah.
Yeah, that would actually be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I remember Legends, and I remember Adventure, sucking at Adventure, which we didn't mention. Castlevania Adventure technically got a remake on the Wii. It was that WiiWare. It was Castlevania Rebirth, which I do have on the Wii.
But that was through the virtual console,
right? It was only WiiWare.
Only yes, yeah.
Unfortunately, so I don't really.
That's why I've never played it before.
I don't even know if there's a way to even get it anymore.
Probably not, because I think the Wii
shop's closed.
Yeah, it closed down years and years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I have it. I bought it a long time ago.
So it's still on your Wii.
Yeah, I still have it on my Wii U.
Yeah.
So we could actually play it if we really wanted to.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you can play
I don't think it was necessarily a game that needed to be remade, though. I mean, it's just it's kind of more of a throwaway, just kind of a product of its time. But it's funny because I think Belmont's Revenge in the past couple of years has definitely had a resurgence where people are like now remembering or like noting that this game is like it's a pretty good game and it's that there's a lot to offer, and so I think the price has like skyrocketed in like recent years.
I was about to say, aren't the Game Boy titles just really expensive in general, comparatively speaking?
The first one is, I mean, honestly, realistically, you might find it for like $20, but it's realistically like a $10 or $15 game.
Oh, okay. I thought they were expensive for some reason.
The second one, for the longest time, I don't even know what it goes for right now. Let me see. Son of a bitch. Hold on. Belmont's Revenge. So Belmont's Revenge is $62 loose, which it makes sense because then complete it's like over $400. So the Game Boy boxes, for some reason, it makes them go up astronomically. I don't understand why, but it's $62. And then yes, Castlevania Legends has always been a super expensive game, and right now I think that one's sitting at about $185.
Jesus.
As a Game Boy game, I don't know if it's necessarily worth it, but fortunately enough, I remember that was, I think, at the first Midwest Gaming Classic or second Midwest Gaming Classic we ever went to. That's when I picked it up and I got it for $50.
Jeez.
Because the guy was asking 60 and I'm like, would you do 50? And the guy just kind of stared at me and he's like, yeah, I could do 50. And I'm just like, man, you can't haggle like that anymore because people are just like, well, I've already got it on the low end, so I was actually thinking about like marking it up actually because I think that this is
one of my favorite games on the table.
I have it a little bit lower than what I should be having it at. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Legally marked. If it's that, you have to sell it for that price. Yeah. That is the law.
But it is cool that it does. You can choose your stage. It's set 15 years after the events of the first Castlevania Adventure. Mm-hmm. I guess Dracula abducts Christopher Belmont's son Soleil. Someone wants to turn him into a demon or something.
And so you're trying to save him then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, not much of a story to speak of.
What do you do?
But I mean, you got your classic Castlevania gameplay. Again, I like the idea of the non-linear levels where you could pick whichever one you want, and you're not punished for picking one over another, which is great because a lot of games did not allow that. And I just, the final battle with Dracula was really cool, but just like I said, they really just kind of overcompensated and made the game a lot easier than they probably should have.
They went more Mega Man than they
did.
anticipated.
Well, it's like I said, it was the perfect example of like Castlevania Adventure was Mega Man 1, and then they realized like, crap, we screwed up because we really made it difficult, so we're going to turn Belmont's Revenge into Mega Man 2, and that's exactly what they did. So, but it's a great game, password-based system. You've got all your sub-weapons back, and
there's only 2 sub-weapons.
Well, still, you have sub-weapons in the first place.
And the American sub-weapons are different.
Yeah, we got the axe and the
holy water. We didn't get the cross.
Japanese had the cross
instead of the axe.
Who wanted the cross anyway? Who cares?
The cross is better than the axe.
Yeah, the axe was better. You could throw it up.
The axe was better. No. That's why they
Boomerang effect was better.
That's why they chose those two. And holy water has, I think, from the first one, has always been the best weapon.
Oh yeah, it froze enemies in place.
Because it literally froze them in place, and each like individual like second was like an extra hit.
Yeah.
So it's I love that.
So. Yeah.
But from Castlevania 2, we move on to Castlevania Legends, where you play as Sonia Belmont. This game is not canon.
And I only popped that one in for a little bit. I've never actually played through that entire game. Just because it felt like it went back to Castlevania Adventure 1, where the movements are so sluggish that dare I say it, it's like, at times it feels borderline unplayable just because of how damn slow it is. But it's, I did have fun with it, but I remember thinking that this game just moves like you are moving like molasses in January. It's just like you just cannot.
Yeah, I remember that too.
You have a little bit more of a history with this game than I do. So,
but this one was cool in the fact that you got sub weapons or sub spells. They call them soul weapons at the end of every stage. There's 5 stages. And once per level, you could enter what was called a burning mode, where she moves faster, she's invincible, and I want to say she dealt more damage for 10 seconds.
Oh, nice.
Woo! 10 seconds! Woo!
I mean,
that's a lot. That's a lot of time.
Moment,
yeah, that's
pretty
a lot of time.
handy.
Yeah.
And especially at the time, there was nothing like that ever existed, especially in the Castlevania franchise.
Yeah.
Well, and at that time, because I think Legends came out in 1997 or 98?
7 for Japan, 88.
Yes, 98.
For us.
98 for us, yes. Because 99 was the last year that they published games on the Game Boy, the original Game Boy. But up until that point, was there ever any Castlevania game where the main protagonist was a female?
No.
I think that was it.
Sypha has only been...
And she was a secondary character.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've never had... So I really like the inclusion of Sonya in there. Like, hey, you actually have a woman protagonist. You're experiencing it from a different point of view and side.
And to be honest,
they're really cool.
They haven't had a female Belmont since.
No, and I don't know why they haven't done that. You'd think that it... Oh, that's right, because Konami doesn't make games anymore.
Well, yeah, they haven't had a Belmont, but...
I mean, you have What's-Her-Face
Order of Eccles, yeah.
Yeah, you have Shinoa.
Well, you've got the female character in
Maria.
Symphony of the Night
Symphony
as well, too.
Maria. You also
Maria.
have the girl, Charlotte, in Portrait of Ruin.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they've had females, but there's never been a female Belmont.
Never one that you actually play as.
And she's not even canon!
Yeah, I know, and that's sad.
That's the worst part!
That's sad. Why would they decanonize it, though?
It's something to do with the release of Lament of Innocence.
Oh, because it contradicts?
I think so. I think it kind of retcons some of the nonsense. Yeah, it was designed as the first game in a series timeline, but later declared non-canon after the release of Lament of Innocence.
Ah, gotcha. That sucks.
Sad.
Yeah, that sucks. So then technically there's never been a lead female protagonist in canon Castlevania.
Good job, Konami.
Well, no, there just hasn't been a lead female Belmont.
Yeah.
Because Shinoa is still canon.
Oh, that's true. And Maria's still canon, too.
Yeah.
But she's not a Belmont either.
And Castlevania Legends is actually a prequel to all other Castlevanias in the series. So
seriously?
She wasn't even just the first female. She was literally the first Belmont.
Oh my god, wow.
Way to fucking strip her of all the glory.
Wow.
Chances are it's probably because the sales in that one didn't really live up to what they wanted.
Yeah, but you know what, though?
But life cycle.
Around that time, Symphony of the Night came out.
And Symphony of the Night overshadowed everything.
Because you actually...
Everything.
In this one, you actually meet Alucard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean...
Because along that way, too, I mean, I can't remember when it came out or if it came out before or after, but, I mean, Castlevania Chronicles was for the PlayStation 1 as well, too. But that one is probably double the price of Symphony of the Night because of the fact that it's, like, kind of came and went and nobody really cared, but that's because Symphony of the Night really just...
It blew the gates wide open to the franchise.
It almost was like a blessing and a curse for Konami because it was so successful that it completely overshadowed a lot of their other stuff that it's like it should have gotten like kudos and it never did.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I actually didn't know she was supposed to be the actual original because then when Lament of Innocence came out, Leon was technically the first Belmont.
That's one of the only like overall complaints with the Castlevania franchise. Is they can never decide, you know...
They can never pick a defining moment.
Yeah. Well, because it's like, okay, because you have the original one, okay, so that, you know, he's the first Belmont. Well, no, we're going to do the sequel where it's, you know, it's a prequel.
The sequel prequel nonsense.
And then like they constantly Castlevania has a very bad habit of, oh, we're gonna just put this new character in, but it's gonna be before these previous ones.
Feels like Star Wars in here. They do that with every franchise.
Yeah, so
it drives me fucking batty.
But at least with Castlevania, it's one of those things where it's like, well, this person's the first one. No. Now this first person's the first one, and they can never decide what is the definitive. This is our start. Everything else is after this. They cannot do that.
Who's the first Belmont? Who's the first Dracula?
Yeah.
Who's what?
Why is Dracula?
Yeah. They can never decide, and
like,
I agree.
I give a pass to Lords of Shadow because that was a reboot of the franchise, but that wasn't a reboot. That's just them going, well, this is the first one now. Even though we said this other one was hundreds of years before the first game already.
That's why I really liked Bloodlines, because it scrapped the idea of the Belmonts, and you started with the Morrises, who were basically descendants of the Belmonts.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just kind of an interesting take on it when we'll get to that, because that's, I want to say, technically after, it's much after the next game we'll talk about, Super Castlevania IV!
So now we're
also known as the shitty one!
The shitty one! Nobody likes it. This is probably, as many people have stated, the worst entry in the franchise.
Okay, I wouldn't go that far. The Game Boy ones might take that crown.
Even the Game Boy ones were better. This one...
Look at Paul, he's ready to throw us out of the house.
The critics panned it hard graphically.
No, they didn't.
They said, what are you gameplay-wise?
We're the critics.
I see.
That's right, we're the critics. Gameplay-wise, it is the weakest in the series. And just overall experience, it's a hollowed shell of what the Castlevania franchise is.
The characters look better in the Sega game.
Everything about the Sega version, the Sega one was just worlds better. No. Much like Link to the Past, Super Castlevania IV is one of the most iconic games on the system.
Yes, it is.
Super Nintendo, even it's not my favorite, but I still appreciate what the hell it brought to the table, because it is a powerful entry in the Castlevania franchise.
It definitely is. It really feels like they took the original Castlevania game and tried to say, okay, this is what we have now, and this is what we can do. Let's see what we can do with it. And they improved the graphics, they improved the music, they improved everything. It was the first game where you could actually do the flourish with your whip, which was a cool little add-on, because then you could like hurt things like bats and stuff like that without actually having to like tie up your whip with
They've almost done it in pretty much almost every single one after,
Exactly.
And it was the first one to utilize being able to do it in all 8 directions, I think.
Yes,
because I think you can swing straight down as well.
Yes, you sure can. If you jump, you can swing straight down.
And if I'm not mistaken, or from what I remember, this was actually a mechanic they wanted to implement in even the original.
Yes.
Was the ability to swing in all the directions, which obviously, limitation-wise, programming, they couldn't. And, you know, I understand that. But this was the first one to utilize it. Even the Genesis one, you can't. You can only attack straight ahead and up at an angle.
Yeah.
You couldn't attack straight up or under... Well, you could attack underneath.
Spear guy could go
That's
off.
true. The spear guy could.
Yeah.
And he could jump. He could do the spring jump.
Yeah. We'll get to Bloodlines.
Yes.
The far superior version.
Yes.
So, But no, Super Castlevania IV was basically a retelling of the first.
It was, and we actually off microphone, you said that it looks nothing like any other Castlevania game.
No.
However, though, if you were to play the original arcade game, the what is it?
Haunted
Castle. Haunted Castle.
Castle, that's right. I'm sorry.
Haunted Castle. It really does copy those graphics almost to a T.
Yeah.
So it's like they basically wanted to say, like, we can do arcade level graphics on the Super Nintendo. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So it did have a precursor to why they chose the graphics the way they did. But I mean, you had...
It felt like a mash between the original and Haunted.
It really was,
yeah.
I think it really played more like Haunted Castle than it did like... And
I want to keep calling it Haunted Mansion.
I know.
That's Disney.
I know it is.
So, but I mean, you had great music, great enemies, great background like graphics. It even utilized some of the Mode 7 graphics where you had like the spinning columns and stuff, or you had the screen that was like completely rotating while you're holding on to one of the things.
The distortion of pixels.
Yeah, the distortion of pixels and stuff.
7.
It sounded fantastic, and honestly, we've played through it on the channel before. It's a pretty long game. It's got like 9 or 10 different levels to it, and so it's a long story.
And it introduces some of the characters, or the enemy staples. Yeah. You had Slogrud and Gaibin, which were in Symphony of the Night, and so many other later games.
I think Olrox started in that one, too.
I think Olrox was part of this one. I mean, it kickstarted a whole shitload of iconic things for the franchise. And like you said, it's a very long game.
Yeah.
And graphically, it's
and
gorgeous.
Actually, this is actually the start of where Castlevania would just copy and paste, like, art assets into future games, because, like...
But you know what,
like, Symphony of the Night has a whole bunch repasted from it. A lot of the DS ones had enemies that were just copy and paste.
I mean, in Portrait of Ruin, or not Portrait of Ruin, Dawn of Sorrow, when it goes into Castlevania 3 mode, when you play as Julius, Yoko, and Alucard, the Alucard is literally ripped straight from Symphony of the Night. Directly. Yeah. It's so fun.
Hey, but you know what? When you already have something, that's working, like, why would you change it?
Exactly.
It just works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Capcom's known for that.
Shit. But yeah,
how many Street Fighters can we do in the same year?
Oh, jeez.
But yeah, like you were saying, we mentioned this off camera. It's the reason I make fun of it is because they've never gone back to that aesthetic. If you look,
that I don't know why.
I wonder why as well.
Because I mean, granted that he was it Simon that you play as in Super Castlevania IV?
I believe so, because
that's I couldn't remember.
When you see Simon's like his graphic, like, he's big.
He's
like,
huge.
He's huge. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, I can understand why they wouldn't have him, like, that big. But at the same time, it's like, he looked crisp. He looked, like fantastic. Just make a smaller version of him.
Yeah.
Like,
basically make him the way he looked in Castlevania Chronicles.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, great graphics, great everything. Like, why wouldn't you go back to that style?
Yeah. Well, it's...
But it feels like the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis had a lot more experimentation than any of the other the other games in the series did, where they didn't know they wanted to maybe make it this hyper realistic, hyper graphical like game, and then they went down the other side of the spectrum with Bloodlines, and then it was Symphony of the Night that really just kind of like, when they had the success that they did, that's what they then started copying after that. Is keeping it at 2D with these really bright, almost Bloodlines type brightness, like characters and locations, and that's what they ended up sticking with.
Yeah, I mean, and this one as well utilized a password system.
Yep.
Much like
which it should have, because that game is damn long to do in one sitting.
11 levels.
11 levels, yeah.
Whew. That's still a meaty game.
That is, that's a lot of meat on those bones.
I want to say Bloodlines is only like 7, I think.
It's shorter.
It's a lot shorter. But no, it's only because I grew up as a Genesis kid that I give Super Castlevania IV such shit.
It's probably why I give Bloodlines as much crap as I do, just because I was a Super Nintendo kid. Yeah.
But I mean, this game, it was critically well received.
It was well received. I believe it sold very well too. I think it was a $1 million seller game.
And unfortunately, Bloodlines I think was technically the last of this era, as far as how these games functioned. Because once Symph came out, that was it. Like, they didn't go back to this arcade style platformer.
Never did.
Thing.
Never did.
But The Flourish was a big one, like you had mentioned. I mean, I don't have much else to add to it.
No, I don't know. This is one I've played through, but it's another one of those ones where it just kind of fades into the background for me.
Yeah, but
I think I spent more time playing the Genesis game.
There's a lot of different locales that all look fantastic, but I mean, there's a good variety in there. But there's not much more that you can really say. I mean, just graphically, it looked great. It was like arcade level gameplay and design, but on a Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
And I think it was it was more so to flex the muscle of the Super Nintendo, like, hey, look what this can do.
Especially since this came out in 91, which...
It was almost practically a launch title.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is fucking damn impressive.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, I definitely give it the credit it deserves, because it's a strong contender, and it's no wonder that this game is considered one of the greatest games of all time.
I don't know if it's one of the greatest games of all time.
One of the great Castlevanias.
One of the greatest Castlevanias, yeah. Top,
I suppose that's true.
Yeah, top games in the series, but also top games on the Super Nintendo, hands down.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely one of the top 10.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like of all time, but definitely on the Super Nintendo, this is literally top 5, top 10 level, like, a game.
Oh, yeah.
Basically.
If you ask somebody, hey, what are the best 3 titles on the Super Nintendo, chances are Super Castlevania 4 is going to come up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Chrono Trigger is usually most people's go-to for the Super Nintendo.
If it's, or Super Mario World.
Or, Mario Kart. All right, maybe there's more than I thought.
There's a lot of good stuff, though. That's why I said top 10 for sure. Like, if you did, like, a Google search of, like, the like SNES games, you're gonna get Super Castlevania 4 in the first 10 hits.
Oh yeah, 100%. So from there, 3 years later, you end up with Castlevania Bloodlines on the Genesis. Pretty much harkens back to the roots of the Castlevania franchise, as far as look goes, aesthetic. I mean, I grew up with Bloodlines. I thought this game was fucking incredible, because you're not playing as the Belmonts anymore. Mm-hmm. This game is considered a Gaiden to the Castlevania series, which basically just
side story.
It's a side story. Yeah.
What do they call a sidequel, as it's colloquially?
Who
calls it a sidequel?
That's a portmanteau of side and sequel.
I understand. I know what it is, but people actually say that?
That's the only
You're
people.
Literally the only person.
I'm the only one that matters. It's a thing. It's a thing.
You're going to try to make it.
I just did a quick thing to like top 25 SNES game or top 20 SNES games. Den of Geek has Castlevania 4 is 16.
Oh, it's number 16. Okay, and that's on top 20. You said.
Top 25.
Top 25. Still made the top 25 list.
So
pretty sweet.
And that was only from one site, and this was from 2019. I'm sure other sites have different. Like if I went to IGN, I bet you it's somewhere else in there. Yeah. So I just wanted to see, it's at least in the top 20 on multiple lists.
Yeah. But Castlevania Bloodlines was unique in the fact that you're not a Belmont anymore. We're fast forwarding a bit. Sort of, I guess.
Although technically,
it's technically World War I.
It's also technically not the first game where you play as someone who's not a Belmont. Castlevania 3, you can play as non-Belmont characters.
Yeah, but there's a Belmont in it.
Yeah, but it's still, you can be non-Belmonts if you choose to be.
I suppose that's true. But no, regardless, there's no trace of the Belmont really in there, other than the fact that the Morrises are considered...
They're the successors.
Pretty much the successors.
The Belmont clan died out, and they said, "Take our whip, beat that shit." Ugh.
Pretty much, yeah. You play as John
and then
Morris.
John was like, "Okay."
Yeah, you play as John Morris, and then their family friend, the Lacards. Yeah. You have Eric Lacard. And other than that, you're in...
the Morrises and the Lacards have never come back, have they?
Yeah, in Portrait of Ruin.
I think they get mentioned, but are they actually back?
Yeah, you play as Jonathan Morris.
Oh, are you?
Yeah. And then Wind, the person who helps you, is Eric Lacard.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. You don't remember much from Portrait?
No.
Oh, fuck. Portrait of Ruin is fantastic.
Replayed eventually. But
yeah, that one's a good one. I really enjoyed that one. Because it plays like Castlevania 3 in the fact that you rotate with Charlotte. Because I want to say Charlotte is also something, but I don't remember what.
No, I always figured. Yeah, I don't remember.
She's like, her bloodline's related to the Belnatish. I don't remember too much about it either.
Like Arya and Dawn overshadowed all the other ones for me. So,
well, Portrait of Ruin was such an odd duck because again, like Bloodlines, I feel like was overshadowed by Super Castlevania 4 as well.
Yeah.
Even because honestly, Bloodlines critically did okay, but people complained it was too short, which I think was even Paul's criticism of it when we played it on the channel was you said it was just
like,
it was short.
Like, that's it?
It's like it was like 7 levels, I think, or it was too easy.
And I think and that was leading into like because my only history with like the Castlevanias of that generation was Super Castlevania IV, which was literally like even if you knew what you were doing, making it through all of the 11 levels of that game, you're looking at least 90 minutes to 100 minutes.
Yeah, it was long.
So I mean it's long, which I can understand why there was like password features and stuff like that. So with your 7 levels and it's like a 45-minute game, it's like half the length.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Bloodlines only sold 40,000.
40,000 copies.
Sad.
Yep.
Even though a lot of people consider it a hidden gem on the system. Because it's, I mean...
You want to know why it's a hidden gem? Because it didn't sell.
I mean, and I don't understand why. Because you look at it graphically, game is fucking gorgeous. It's one of the most beautiful games on the system.
It's just very... It's very colorful.
Oh my god.
You
son of a bitch. You're going to bring back all my hatred for you.
I know. I remember that. So I remember when we played...
Over 500,000 for Castlevania IV.
I saw that. It's like 600,000, 630,000 copies total. Which I thought it was more than that, but...
Is that just on its release?
No, that's worldwide. That's in its, yeah.
Okay.
I would have thought for sure that it was over 600,000. Like, it was over 1 million.
Because that's also part of some things, too, wasn't it?
I'm assuming this is only based
Castlevania
off the original sales.
Maybe the original sales, not remakes
Okay.
or like collections and stuff like that.
Because I never remember, I never know how they determined.
But no, I just, playing Bloodlines or seeing Bloodlines for the first time, I didn't mind that you had a new character. I don't mind any of that stuff. The enemies, a lot of the enemies you could tell were used directly for, like, Symphony of the Night. Like, the spear guy who can spear you through, like, different levels and stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I appreciate a lot of the stuff that was reutilized for Symphony of the Night, but compared to Super Castlevania IV and just the original trilogy on the Nintendo in general, had very dark tones. Very, like, dark, dank-looking environments. And Castlevania Bloodlines was completely the opposite. It's like they completely flipped it upside down, where everything was just super bright, everything was super, like, cartoonish looking, and I just was not expecting that from a Castlevania game. Which was one of my biggest gripes of it. It's not even saying that the graphics aren't good. They're fantastic. But it's just so... It's such a...
It's the lowest selling Castlevania in the franchise.
It's such a juxtaposition from what the other Castlevania games in the series up to that time were.
Which is ironic, considering you fast forward 1 year to Castlevania Dracula X, looked exactly like Bloodlines. It was...
No, it didn't.
It was exactly as colorful. Richter is a blue-ass fucking character on the screen compared to, like,
he's a blue-ass character, but you know what,
even the environments were all very colorful.
It was more so a follow-up to Super Castlevania IV, and maybe some of the color palettes you're looking at, maybe it's somewhat like Bloodlines, but no, I would not say that it's bright. I would say it's bright because, like, you have fire going, and...
No. Dracula X is pretty much Bloodlines, except your Richter. It goes back to...
But notice that I haven't said that Dracula X is a fantastic game.
It is, though.
It's not as good as you would think.
I've played it.
I know, and I love it.
Yeah.
But I still think that Super Castlevania IV is better.
Well, agree to disagree.
Paul's just wrong on this one.
I think it's because, again, your experience, Super Castlevania IV, I appreciate Dracula X more because I have Bloodlines. And Dracula X was more like Bloodlines.
Oh, okay.
And again, I don't understand this. And
I do like that they reintroduced the whole pick-a-path thing in Dracula X.
Yes.
I did like that element.
I like that a lot. And again, it's, that Castlevania IV sold so well. Never went back to that style that did so well. What did they go with? The lowest selling Castlevania of all time. Because you even look at Symphony of the Night, it's a colorful ass game.
It is.
I'm not defending it, but it's such a weird choice.
Well, and to be honest, this is something that irritates me with people. Is just because something is colorful does not mean it can't be dark.
Right.
Oh, of course.
That's
palette,
like the big...
the palette and the atmosphere are two different things.
Well, and this is like... That was a big complaint when Diablo 3 was originally announced. If you look at the art style, there were a lot of colors. They chose more colors than Diablo 2 used.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh, why is it all bright and colorful and cheerful? It's Diablo. It should be cheerful. Dark.
Yeah,
it's like,
no.
Dark doesn't mean the Zack Snyder, I use 2 colors and that's fucking it.
Yeah.
Like, I can have bright pink and have still something be dark and fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, it being bright and colorful doesn't mean it's not a dark game.
Yeah.
The overall atmosphere of Bloodlines was more so in the soundtrack.
Yeah.
The music to Bloodlines, no matter what you say, the soundtrack was fucking incredible.
It's probably one of the best soundtracks on the Genesis period.
Oh yeah, Bloodlines had one of the most stellar soundtracks of the games on the system for sure. Even though everybody knows the tinny quality of Sega's system shine through a little bit.
And you literally gave me guff because I said that, I think, during our playthrough, and you're like, what tinny? What are you talking about? And I'm like,
I know exactly what you're
just to give you shit.
Sega Genesis had a very distinct, because of their sound chips, they had a very distinct tinny sound to it, and it really comes through.
You want the worst case of that? Play Wily Wars on Sega Genesis.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Or Vector Man.
I was like, oh, dude, I bet you because Wily Wars, if I remember right, you could play. It was basically like Genesis versions of
1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
I was like, oh man, I bet you it'd look cool, or I bet you all the Mega Man 2 would look cool on the Genesis.
It looked cool, but it
sounded
sounds
like
terrible.
shit.
It sounds terrible.
I remember watching a video on it, and I'm like, oh, fucking Bubble Man stage, oh, Metal Man stage, and I'm like, this sounds like ass on the Genesis.
Yeah. But it's funny because
certain games it works.
As bad as the sound can be on the Genesis, there are games where Shining Force 2, listen to that soundtrack, it's fucking amazing.
Well, to be quite honest,
Phantasy Star 4.
You take the tinny sound, but it really works. Like, take a game like Road Rash.
Yeah.
Road Rash, it works.
Yeah.
It's like there's one note in there where it literally sounds like a cat dying, but I'm just like, it works.
But it's surrounded by all the other notes. You're like, it's kind of nice.
Like Phantasy Star 4, that sci-fi RPG thing, it almost kind of works better. Mm-hmm. It's a very particular sound that the Genesis had.
Yes.
And it worked in Bloodlines.
Yeah.
Like, everything, that the Tower of Pisa level specifically, the fucking music was so good in that one. The atmosphere of that entire level is just gorgeous. To me, it blew Super Castlevania 4 out of the water. As far as the aesthetic, as far as the ambiance of the levels went.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I like some of the creature designs in Bloodlines more.
Yeah.
Like that one, that two-tone wolf dog you fight, as you're beating it up, it kind of fell apart kind of thing.
Yeah.
There was stuff like that was just really cool looking. That just Super Castlevania 4 didn't have the equivalent of.
Yeah. The water level 2, when you're in Paris, I think it is. I don't really remember. But I mean, I loved Bloodlines. I liked the fact you could play as John Morris or Eric Lacard, because Eric Lacard gave it such a different feel.
Well, yeah, and that's another one where it's like Castlevania 3, where depending on which character you were, there were different paths open to you.
Yeah.
Because with the spear, there were a couple of spots where you could bypass going down to some of the lower levels, which would then change the stuff you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Because John Morris could use the whip to hook onto ceilings and swing.
Yeah.
You could rope swing, which was cool. Mm-hmm. Eric Lacard had the vault, where he could spring up, and he could attack in all 8 directions, and even he had a version of a flourish. Yeah. Where if you held the button out and went left and right, he would spin the spear. Yeah. It was really cool. Mm-hmm. And just the sub-weapons in general were really neat. I liked their souped-up versions of their weapons.
When he gets the green flame on the end of the spear.
Yeah. You got that. John Morris had his turned into an energy whip. It was really fucking neat. Yeah. I think, just gameplay-wise, I preferred Bloodlines over Super Castlevania 4. Because, to me, Super Castlevania 4 felt like more of the same, if that makes sense.
No, it did. It definitely, like we had said, it was more so almost a port of Haunted Castle. And it was going back to the 1, 2, and 3 roots of just dark overtones, that dark ambience, the like, yeah, it was that same style.
Yeah.
Castlevania Bloodlines completely turned it upside down, and it worked.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Which, like I said, it continued on with Dracula X for some reason.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because Dracula X is pretty much the precursor to Symphony of the Night.
Right.
Is the events of that directly lead into and tie into the beginning part of Symphony of the Night.
Which makes sense considering the first part of Symphony of the Night is Dracula X.
Literally, yes.
Yeah. But other than that, I mean, Bloodlines was neat in the fact that the story continued with the vampire killer. Mm-hmm. The Morrises, and it's explained later in Portrait of Ruin, when you actually acquire the vampire killer, and it actually drains your health.
Mm-hmm.
Because you
anyone
find
that's
out
not a Belmont can't actually wield it.
Exactly.
It's part of the curse.
Yes, and Morrises aren't Belmonts, so it's like they have to. Basically John Morris tells Jonathan Morris that's what that is, or Eric Lacard does, I think.
I don't remember,
because John Morris dies because the curse of the vampire killer killed him. Mm-hmm. And it's a fascinating. I like the lore of it. Yeah. I like the lore of it more than I actually like the main line, which is strange. But yeah, Bloodlines to me was just a more interesting title.
Fair enough. I mean, there's going to be games where it's like, just because it doesn't sell well doesn't mean that it can't like resonate with gamers.
Damn, that is a very shockingly low number, though.
I just have to,
almost 1/10.
I just have to put almost 1/10.
Yeah.
I just have to put this into perspective that Super Castlevania IV sold 80. No. Castlevania Bloodlines sold 15% of what Super Castlevania IV sold.
Yeah.
Just let that percolate in your head.
Is that because it was basically a launch title for the Super Nintendo?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
They only had 4 games to choose from.
When
I don't know.
when did Bloodlines come out?
94.
94.
I don't know when
Genesis came out. Genesis came out in 89.
Oh,
so it was 5 years into its life cycle, but I think the Sega Genesis went until at least 96, possibly 97. But
Same with the Night's sales numbers.
Oh, it's
ridiculous.
It's like 3 million.
Well, at release, it was like 1.27.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Well, still, I mean, that was enough to consider it like a huge seller.
You know what's sad?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. I didn't realize this. Castlevania Judgment sold more than Bloodlines.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. 160,000.
To be honest, though, it was a first for the series.
It was.
And it was a very good and it was also a tie-in to Order of Ecclesia.
Yeah.
Judgment.
So.
But, there you go. That's Castlevania Bloodlines.
And now we can talk about a little bit of Castlevania Dracula X.
That's true.
Because I completely forgot about that part.
I won't lie, so did I. I wrote all these notes, and I only went to Bloodlines because I completely forgot about Dracula X.
Yeah, it's just Dracula X just really like that one just kind of came and went. I think that because it was closer to the end of the Super Nintendo's life cycle.
Yeah, 95.
So it didn't really get the attention that it deserved, but it was also one of it may have been the last of the Castlevania titles when Konami was still operating out of Illinois. Because they were actually, like, their headquarters was actually, like, close by us. It was, like, maybe 45 minutes away from us. I want to say it was in Northbrook. And they ended up moving their studio and their corporate facility out to California because they wanted to reinvent themselves. And one of the first titles that they came out with after they moved to California in 1996 is Symphony of the Night. So they really reinvented themselves when they moved out there. So I think that this was just a product of the time it came out, where I don't know if they were necessarily putting in their 100% into their game because they
definitely not
already wanted to kind of like reinvent themselves, refine themselves. And so they're just I honestly, at the time, reading like magazines like Nintendo Power and EGM, even like Tips and Tricks and all that other stuff, I don't remember seeing anything about Dracula X.
No, and to be honest,
I didn't even learn about it until years and years later.
I remember one ad for it, and that's it.
I remember hearing more about like Rondo of Blood.
Yes,
because that's referenced more. Because this is basically it's basically a port of Rondo.
It's not a remake of it.
Yeah, and it's not.
It's a flat out remake of it.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yes.
Because the Rondo of Blood was what? For what?
PC something or other. I think.
No, I thought it was.
I have it
the
here.
MSX. No, it's not the MSX.
It's
PC Engine.
Oh, it was
There
PC
you go.
Engine. Okay.
So basically, it wasn't really available here, which is why they did Dracula X.
Yeah.
Because they needed a lead up into Symphony of the Night.
Granted, we did get it here eventually on the PSP.
Yes.
That's true. We did.
Yeah,
It was part of the
Castlevania collection.
Where you could actually unlock Symphony of the Night as one of the unlockables when if you did
with the
stuff.
different voice acting, which was weird.
Yeah,
That's weird.
It was very odd.
Like, what voice acting?
They
Like, just-
redubbed some of it. I
They
think.
redubbed the guy who did Alucard was different.
Really?
I think all the characters were
I
different.
can't even imagine anybody other than the voice actor who did Alucard.
Because Alucard's voice is so distinct.
Yeah.
I don't know. As much as I like his voices in the game, honestly, I prefer the voice actor they have in the series, the animated.
Oh,
I'll
sure,
agree with that.
yeah.
Because he's just the voices for the characters just match them better for some reason in the Netflix series than the games do.
Yeah, but now...
But for the era the games came out,
exactly. Remember
yes.
that they were just trying to find anybody they could who could
and
read those lines. Now there's more emphasis on the voice acting, and people have made entire careers just off of the voice acting.
Well, and at that time, especially with like Symphony Night and stuff, getting someone to do Dracula and be able to do like Shakespearean type quotes while still sounding menacing is a feat in and of itself.
Yes.
Because that kind of dialogue more often than not just comes off as cheesy.
Yeah, it seems
What are you
silly.
talking about? What is a man?
Well, but then
A
that's
miserable
perfect.
pile of secrets.
well, and to be honest, would that line be as iconic and stuff like that if it didn't sound as good as it did?
Well, I think because it sounded corny is why it really kind of took on a life of its own.
Yeah, but it's
It
not.
was delivered very well.
But it was,
it's not as corny onto like the bad levels of like all your base belong.
I was
belong
literally
to us.
just about to say
or
it.
or
Like-
from Resident Evil, like you were almost a Jill sandwich.
or blood like
Yeah.
What is it? Blood.
like it's like for like they managed to even in like those they managed to deliver it in a way like it's not exactly great dialogue, but because of the way the actors delivered it, you actually are like, okay, I accept this, and it works.
Yeah.
And he's back, that son of a bitch.
I was about to say, he was quiet for the longest time, and then he came out. But actually, Dracula X, like you'd said, did not get received very well.
No, it didn't.
In fact, it was bashed pretty fucking hard.
Was it really?
Because it was, to most critics at the time, it was such a step down from Super Castlevania IV.
I don't know if I would necessarily say a step down, but it just...
To them, it was.
Well, it's because you had Super Castlevania IV that had come out in 1991.
Yeah.
And in that time, you would have had a lot of time to know, like, what the specs were, what you had to work with, what your ceiling was, so you could constantly improve the quality of life in the game. But Dracula X came out in 1995, 4 years after Super Castlevania IV. Even if it was on the same level of Super Castlevania IV, it would still be seen as a disappointment because it's like, well, why after 4 years of research and development can you only match something that came out 4 years ago instead of just surpassing it in every level?
I mean, we pan games hard when we play the NES games. Like we've equated some of these like 92 releases to like games that came out in 86 that did it better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same kind of principle. You know, you've had
all
4
this.
years.
You've had all these years to figure out, like, okay, this is what I'm working with. You'd think, like,
these are the limitations of the system.
You know exactly what you have.
I'm gonna say, and y'all, at least I don't know how much like this affected like Castlevania, but at least in like the Nintendo thing, they kind of got lazy with how they would push stuff out, like the timelines of pushing stuff out.
Sometimes, yeah.
So like I don't know if that like maybe they like with the Castlevania and stuff they were like, we can take a little bit of a breather. It's Castlevania. We're not going to fuck it up. Mm-hmm. And they got lazy where like, some like Ocean does on like, like how often do they go, oh, it's last minute. Well, we got to put a game out. Oh, that's right.
Let's just ET it.
Yeah. So like, unfortunately on the Nintendo, that's the mentality seemed very common.
Yeah.
So I wonder if like maybe that kind of happened with Castlevania.
Well, like I said, I still think that my hypothesis of they were already kind of wanting to redefine themselves and find themselves again, and were probably in the process of already moving their headquarters from the Midwest to the West Coast. And I just don't think that they put in the resources that they should have. They should have just not released it.
How many other people were developing and they were told, hey, you got to uproot and move, and they said, fuck no, I'm not moving.
There was several people. I
wouldn't be, because like a company just randomly saying, hey, by the way, we're not going to be here anymore, we're going over there. Not everyone could just say, yeah, I'm going to uproot my entire family and move.
Correct.
So how many times people had to develop and then ship a half-finished thing that someone else had to finish?
I actually know, believe it or not, the company that I work at, one of the guys there, he was a game tester for Konami.
Oh, really?
Back in the mid '90s, and when they moved to California, he said, yeah, I can't just uproot my family, and so he basically got laid off at that point.
Yeah, then
from Konami.
That's got to be a pretty common story. So, how much of it was? Yeah, we started development here, uprooted, then had to play catch-up development once we got something established over on the West Coast. Because that's always a possibility for why all of a sudden there's a difference in quality.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Dracula X, I remember. We got it at a classic.
Yep.
It's the same classic I got Crusader.
Yeah, you're welcome. You got some bucks off of that one because I bought Dracula X.
That game, by the way, Crusader Senti now $650.
I know, you paid $140 for it.
Whew. It's as
Very
expensive as Rule of Rose complete.
But I mean, I paid $160 for Dracula X,
what
which
Dracula X goes for right now.
$350.
Woo!
Yeah. So I mean, even though I paid more than you did, at least
it's justified.
Has doubled.
Yeah.
Apparently, Dracula X also got released with the
the Advanced Collection.
The Advanced Collection.
Oh, I didn't know that.
What was the Advanced Collection?
In 2001.
It was that, and I want to say Ario.
Circle
that's
of the Moon,
right,
Harmony
in
of Dissonance, and
2021,
Ario
yes.
Sorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was Dracula X was on there as well.
But that was, again, a digital-only release, right?
The
The Advanced Collection?
I don't remember.
I think it was only digital. I think they only released it on the virtual... Not the
Maybe.
virtual... The Wii Shot, or the Wii U.
But then I thought that just came out.
This just came out last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they still,
I think
they're
it
still
was a
releasing
physical
things
of it.
on the Wii. For the Wii U.
I thought
this
because
was-
I have that
Oh, maybe it's the
collection.
Switch.
This is
the
Switch,
I'm
PS4,
thinking.
and Xbox.
Ah, there you go. Okay.
I was like, because I have that collection.
But you have it digitally.
Yes,
Yeah,
of course.
I
but
think it's only digital, but they released it on those networks.
you might be able to get physical through like limited run, maybe.
I think maybe Limited Run did a...
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not...
Because there is a lot. That's the thing. Nowadays it's hard to tell what's released physical and digital anymore.
Yeah.
Because you can get a lot of these like collection things as physical, but it's not like sold in like Best Buys or Targets.
No,
or
exactly.
It's only through limited
Yeah.
It's
run
only through
games.
limited run, so it's like physical is such a fucking finicky market now.
No, because there's an Advanced Collection for Switch right there.
Oh yeah,
Let me see.
but it's used through eBay. But
No, it's custom empty case only.
there you go.
Okay, then, yeah.
Man, read the description.
Ah!
I don't want to read
Fucking eBay.
pictures only.
Yeah, that's. I don't think that they actually did a physical run. If they did, it was limited run only.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Okay.
never not mass marketed it. So
Yeah, but honestly, I played Dracula X. It was okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see why a lot of people, why it was panned a little harder than Super Castlevania IV, because it's kind of hard. It did feel kind of like a step backwards.
And I think, honestly, I mean, Super Castlevania IV is not an easy game by any means, but yeah, Dracula X was much harder.
Yeah.
And I think just the fact, like I said, just the fact that a game comes out 4 years later, but it's still only doing what the original one did in 1991, that in and of itself is like, okay, it gets the panning it deserves because of how come you couldn't, in 4 years, do something better. Yeah.
At least Bloodlines didn't have a foot in a door yet. Like, they didn't have anything to compare themselves to other than Super Castlevania IV, which was a different system.
Yeah.
You know, that'd be like comparing Metal Gear on the Nintendo versus Metal Gear on the MSX. It's like two totally different things. Mm-hmm. But I think for now, that sounds like a good spot to leave it.
Yeah, I was going to say, because then, we can jump into
the
Konami.
modern era.
Konami had an identity crisis in 1990, late 95, 96, and decided that the only way that they could overcome that identity crisis is to reinvent themselves, which then meant moving their headquarters from the Midwest in Illinois to the West Coast in California, where a lot of game companies were then starting to pop up and reinvent themselves and refine themselves. They did with their first Castlevania title from that new location.
Yes.
Holy crap.
Which actually, I was going to go to school after high school for game design.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to do game design stuff. And I remember when I was, like, with one of the counselors talking to him, he had mentioned that if I wanted to do game design, if I was serious about it, I would have to move to either the East or West. Because there is nothing
I don't know necessarily the East Coast, but definitely the West Coast. Like, you would have
West Coast for sure.
You would have had to have gone to California for that.
He says there's really no jobs like that in the Midwest here.
And at the time, there wasn't.
No. Even still now.
Well, yeah, not quite like they are now, but I feel like you could do it like
back when
anywhere.
We graduated, it was definitely more of a thing where you would have to move. Like nowadays, you can program fucking anywhere. Like,
but
being an indie developer is basically as successful as a fucking AAA developer now.
Unfortunately, still a lot of places, like the majority of places for game design are still, unless you're going indie, are still West Coast.
Mm-hmm. Or going to school for like video game design,
I know,
like in college.
I know a couple.
They're a lot of them on the West Coast.
I know a couple of people who do programming professionally that they were living in Illinois, and once they started like actually any better job they wanted, they had to go to like California. I think there was one in like New Mexico or Arizona or something like that. One went to,
but still,
and then one like
West Coast.
New York. That was it.
Yeah.
And those were like their only options for better jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Like the rest of the country is basically SOL for programming.
Yeah.
Unless you're working specifically for like a smaller company or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, we'll divide this into a multiple spanning podcast, PowerCast thing, because like you said,
there's a lot to cover with these.
There's a lot to cover, and this next chunk
is going to be probably the most influential because it had a
PS1, PS2, DS, 3DS.
It had a resonance on the series and
in gaming
genre.
In general.
Yeah, the genre in general.
Which is still being mimicked to this day. There 100%. Are games coming out. There are games coming out this week that follow this formula. It's insane.
Yep.
That Symphony of the Night was that fucking influential and that good, which is why it's considered one of the greatest games of all time.
Not just Castlevania, not just PlayStation, greatest games of all time.
That's hard to do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of games out there, boys.
Yeah, there is, but I mean, this one really just it became the blueprint for the next 25 years?
Yeah. Pretty much.
I cannot believe it came out 25 years ago. Holy crap.
Yeah, 97.
Freaking old.
Yeah, we are. But that'll do it for this. So, with that, you can hit us up on Facebook.
You can hit us up on Twitter.
You can go to powertripgaming.tv. Takes you directly to the YouTube channel where you can watch us conquer the 678 game NES collection. Yeah!
Yes. You can also check us out on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify, which you are actually checking us out on right now.
Well, they could be listening to it through YouTube.
Yep, but iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify for the PTG Powercast, where we talk about other video game stuff, comic books, anything pop culture.
Anything we feel like talking about.
Yep.
If you don't feel like contacting us on social media, shoot us an email at nespowertrip@gmail.com, and I will get back to you.
And that will do it.
That's right. This has been a PTG Powercast.
You've been listening with Power.
Oh, fuck. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
I don't have a blast.